Hello and welcome, fellow motorsports fans. It's been a brilliant week of racing, and as always, I'm here to tell you all about it. This is the single-seater focused episode of the week, so naturally, we are going to be talking about a couple junior Formula races and a whole bunch of news. But as the title can already tell you, the big headline story of the week really is Doriane winning her first ever Formula 4 race. Now, obviously not as in the first race she's ever participated in. It was in fact her sixth race, her second round she's done so far. But yeah, we have a new female Formula 4 winner, and what a fantastic driver she really is. But let's stay in chronological order first. So for the first race of the week over in Sepang, really the big story of that one was young Alpine junior Ki Nakamura also at his second ever car race weekend. Stalled it from pole position and dropped all the way to the back of the grid, as you sort of do after stalling. This allowed Aldehari to pick up a pretty confident, easy win ahead of Jack Beeton and Doriane, who were battling for P2 all race, but she could not really pass Beeton. He just did a very solid defensive drive all race long to keep that position. And really the big one in this race was Nakamura doing what I had the pleasure to witness live at the Shifter Kart World Championship this year, like getting, dumped to the back of the grid on lap one, and then he did a fantastic recovery drive all the way back to P4. He did beat the critical Doriane line. If you finish above Doriane, you're probably not terrible. So that was a stunning drive, like one or two passes, lap after lap. Fantastic stuff to watch. Race 2 then was a rather, I want to say, chaotic reverse grid race. As you'd expect, it was a little bit messy, as it tends to be in these races. Nakamura and Doriane wrecked each other. Aldehari also got involved in some sort of incident, so that already took a bunch of the big players out of contention really early on. Interestingly, and I do need to look for his name real quick here, Stady Nicholas, whatever. I don't know how we pronounce that name because I could not stand to watch the audio feed of this very dodgy broadcast. But hey, at least I'm glad there was actually a broadcast this time around. So that was, I suppose, an upgrade from last week. But don't worry, we are going to be talking about terrible broadcasts in just a moment of time. So yeah, not debut, but first ever competitive season as far as I know, win for Nicholas as well. So very nice stuff there, albeit in the reverse grid race. And then we had the big one, race 3. All three Premers, 1, 2, and 3 in quali. Little neat battle in the first couple laps. The trio sort of fighting each other while gapping away from Beeton and the pack behind. That was a pretty nice sight. And then I am, due to the lack of audio and everything and just a pretty dodgy broadcast in general, I am not entirely sure what happened. There's also no social media presence, by the way, aside from the Doriane win, and also that only appeared quite late on the Instagrams and everything. But there was like Prema or the any of the other teams or drivers, none of them were really promoting the event at all. So that is a bit just bizarre, really. So I could not figure out why Ki Nakamura and Aldehari disappeared in what looked like separate incidents. They could have come together, I suppose, off screen. I don't know. So either way, essentially, Pau was quickly without her two teammates at the sharp end, and then essentially that led to her. She was more or less than just battling Beeton for the win, and yeah, she did hold on to it. Did she actually battle? No, she didn't battle Beeton for the win. Oh yeah, it was Doriane actually. Yeah, I'm getting confused. Yeah, the other big talking point for me was really that Beeton was already like slowly getting outclassed by his own like rookie teammates just at the end of this very, very short season. So yes, he is the champion in this very, like, I mean, just the Wikipedia page itself shows you why this title is meaningless, doesn't it? He's champion because he's the only one who did all the rounds while being a remotely competent driver. It looks like literally he's the only one who did all the rounds. Kevin Zhao apparently was the other one. There we go. So yeah, that's why Jack Beeton won, because he only had one competitor and he still managed to somehow make it close-ish, I suppose. Anyway, both of his teammates looked better by the end of the event, I'd say, so really not a good look for him, but makes me very excited for another topic that we are going to talk about, which is the return of Australian F4. Stay tuned for a little bit. So either way, yes, Dory got her first win. I'm really happy. Obviously, I'm a bit of a fanboy, as you may be able to notice. But just to keep it real and objective as well, obviously it wasn't entirely on merit, as in she didn't go toe to toe with her teammates throughout the entire race. Something happened to both of them. So in many ways, I might actually say her P2 in the reverse grid race is more impressive to me. But obviously, you just can't take anything away from that win. It is a very special moment for not just feeder series racing, but just women in motor racing, or like the current generation of women in motor racing. So yeah, I'm just really glad that it happened. Now, to move on from a very nice topic, we have to go to a bit of a shitty one, which is the Indian F4 series. Now, the series itself, I don't know how good or bad it is, because I only watched the first round, which is the immediate problem. Why wasn't there a stream for the second round? Now, I've been able to figure out that apparently there has been a stream on some sort of website, which I then could not find, or there are no VODs, or I don't even know. Whatever, after a pretty solid broadcast for round one, they just decided to not broadcast it on YouTube anymore for reasons that I do not understand. So we will just have to have a look at the results and quickly check for anything odd. In many ways, Cooper Webster doing really well in all three races is no surprise. He's one of the two favorites of the series. The more intriguing one to me is Akshay Bora not actually winning a race. I mean, I think the second race is a reverse grid in this series as well, so fair enough for not getting on the podium there. But yeah, just a bit odd that he did not manage to get a win. Although obviously he did have a little more competition than in round one, because Dion Gowda was also there now for this one, and he also got one of the wins. But then again, he also retired in one of the races, so I don't know, just a tiny bit underwhelmed by Akshay Bora, and I don't know, he just didn't have the strongest finish to his year at all, also with the slightly dodgy performance in Spanish F4. On the other hand, though, we have Shahan Ali Mozin, I think is how we are going to pronounce that for the moment. But either way, the first proper local boy with no international experience to win a race in the series. And yes, it is the reverse grid run, but nonetheless, I mean, this is the entire goal, at least from the organizers' perspective, isn't it? To actually foster homegrown talent in a homegrown series without forcing them to spend the loads of money required to compete overseas. So yeah, I think this is a really good sign. So this sort of means, together with Rajiv, who I at least liked during the first round, this at least means there are two like competent looking local boys on the grid, I suppose. So that's good news. Now, as I said, unfortunately, we can't go into any of the details because I was not able to watch the race, but what we can talk about is the future of Cooper Webster, and this neatly transitions us to the news segment of the show. And the first piece of news is that Cooper Webster is transitioning to Eurocup 3 for next season, the new series by, I forgot what the promoter is called, the same promoter that does the Spanish F4. Slightly, I mean, I want to say surprising move. I don't know. It feels very difficult to predict the Eurocup 3 grid. I feel like every driver going there would be a tiny bit of a surprise to me. I was definitely expecting him to do what we'll see in a second, which is to just step up directly to GB3. Obviously, he didn't win it. He was P2 in GB4, but like one of the standout drivers all year long. So yeah, it would have been a logical move, but apparently no. Apparently we are going to Eurocup 3, which at least for me is mainly interesting, not just for Cooper Webster's career, but also just for the fact that yes, Eurocup 3 will be a prominent series next year as well, or presumably it might grow larger and more important than it was this year, which I am very much looking forward to. The cars were good as far as I could tell. The cars were very racy. It's just unfortunately that the driver grid maybe wasn't quite as racy, and pretty big gaps between some of the teams as well, making it less competitive. But that's sort of, the teething issues that you'd expect with a new series, I suppose. Okay, next bit of news. As we said, a very similar topic. The other standout guy, aside from the champion, was Colin Queen. Sort of like a very convincing third in the series, in the same way that Webster was a very clear second. And he is in fact going to do what I would have predicted Webster to do as well, which is just step up directly to GB3. I'm sure he'll do it all right over there. It remains to be seen how good he really is. But yeah, this is just some informational pieces, and in case you weren't aware that Colin Queen is actually a solid racer, I can now assure you that, at least for this level, he is. Then we have 2 PHM news. Forgive me for bringing up Instagram for this, but apparently there's just no official news post just yet. This is in many ways the more interesting and definitely less predictable one for me, which is a Brando Badoer stepping up from Italian F4 finally to Frecker with PHM, which, I mean, you know, it's an alright move. He was never going to get a top seat. I rate Badoer quite a bit. I think a tiny bit less just errors or incidents over the year would have really done a lot for him. But he is one of those solid guys that probably already spent a year too long in F4 maybe. So I'm just glad he's stepping up. And then the other bit of news, more or less close linked to this, is the future of Taylor Barnard. And I almost cried a tiny bit here, because it appears that not only is he staying in Formula 3, he is also essentially taking a step back to the only team less competent than Genter last year, and he'll be racing for PHM. Oh no, that's actually not true. I forgot about Colin. They're so bad, I try to ignore them whenever I can. Okay, fair enough. Second worst team then. Yeah, this is just a depressing piece of news really for anyone who's watched Taylor Barnard throughout the year. Both in the Middle Eastern series where he went toe-to-toe with Antonelli till the very end, and then his just stunning F3 campaign in very underwhelming machinery. So yeah, for all of us that enjoy watching this, that is a bit of a, you know, kick in the nuts really. He should not be wasted in a seat like this, but I just hope he can get out of there next year. At the very least, maybe PHM does push him to F2 the year after, but if he just doesn't have the budget for it, and then to get promoted within a team that seems to very heavily rely on a lot of money from their drivers, more so than normal, yeah, he could be one of those guys stuck in a random dead end, and I would hate to see it. Okay, next up, Juju Noda. This one is just, I mean, the headline really says it all. I don't need to say much about this, do I? In case you don't know Juju Noda, she's somewhat hyped in the past, but mostly for dodgy reasons. Female single-seater racer from Japan. This year mostly known for winning a race in Euro Formula Open, before then withdrawing because the rules that made winning for her as a female driver easier with weight reduction got removed, and then they withdrew the only car. She's also just in this weird situation where her father refuses to give her proper opportunities. Instead, they keep fielding their own like family-run cars and everything. So obviously that would, especially on the Euro Formula Open grid where you are competing against like, I don't know, was it like 8-ish motorsport, motor park cars? And yeah, you go up against that as like a lonely private team entrant. What are you supposed to do there really? What's the end game here? And now she is apparently going to step up to a Super Formula test. So there's 2 sides to this. First of all, there's a Super Formula Rookies test, which is the one talked about, I think, here. So that makes sense. I mean, they need rookies for it. She is a rookie. She brings publicity. Fair enough. I'm sure that works the same way in Japan as does anywhere else at the moment. But the article itself at least suggested that she's actually being looked at as a full season driver. Now, if that is gonna turn out to be true, that's just disgusting, and it's gonna be a mess to watch, and it'll probably end her career for good, or at the very least the performance she'll show in Super Formula should then probably end her career for good, which would be a shame to see. I feel like she hasn't even gotten a proper shot at it yet. I'd much rather have her in, let's say, Super Formula Lights next year with an actual team and not a privately funded one, and privately funded, you know what I mean, privately ran car, to actually, yeah, you know, see how good she is and give her a proper opportunity at improving and developing her skills. But apparently that might not be in the cards for her, unfortunately. Then, Australian Formula 4 Championship set to return next year. Now, this makes me really excited. Together with obviously, we are going to lose the Danish F4, as I think we talked about last week. Well, not entirely lose it, but at least with the official FIA-backed F4 name, and it'll merge to an F4 Nordic or Nordic 4 or whatever they are going to call it. But we are getting another with the return of the Southeast Asian Formula 4 and the newly formed Indian Formula 4. We are getting another one, which is the return of the Australian one, which I think went bust 2019, I want to say. I don't know. It was before COVID, definitely. It wasn't quite oh yeah, it even says here, yeah, it was not COVID. There we go. Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't a COVID thing. Obviously Australia has got a fantastic sort of landscape for motorsports, like in particular in contrast to the size of the population. So there's a lot of like history there, a lot of motorsports culture there. There's always a lot of young drivers there, and right now most of them either have to go overseas immediately or more or less just have to, ditch the F1 dream before it ever starts and just go, go onto a supercar career path, sort of. So, I mean, I love this. I think it's brilliant that we get it back, and there is a lot of talent in Australia at the moment. So, yeah, this can only be good. And now, as you may know, my biggest concern now is what will the broadcast look like? Will I be able to access it, and will there be 2-speed? Because I need more 2-speed. Anyway, just wanted to keep you all in the loop about this. And then our only piece of Formula 2 related news for this one. Obviously, there's been a ton of Formula 2 roster announcements this past week with the testing going on as well and everything. But since it's now all coming out at the same time, more or less, I'm just going to do it in a proper Formula 2 prediction video instead. And then we can cover all the moves separately and assess them properly with the time that they deserve as a top-level series. Okay, the only piece of Formula 2 news really outside of the prediction cycle, if you want to call it that, is Paul Aron getting dropped by Mercedes. Obviously, it's not really a huge shock. I believe he was already spotted without Mercedes decals at Macau, so that's one thing. And then, I mean, if you just look at the Mercedes junior team, they now have Vesti, who he doesn't need to do another year in F2. He just was a runner-up in the championship, but also there is no Formula 1 seat available for him, so they already have a candidate who, I mean, if they want to keep the reputation of the academy high, they probably want to give him an opportunity at some point, which is already looking very unlikely. And then there's obviously Kimi Antonelli coming, also stepping up to Formula 2. So technically, he'd go head-to-head with Aron for a potential Mercedes-funded F1 seat or whatever. I was about to say Mercedes seat, but yeah, let's be real, they're not stepping up straight to Mercedes. Unlikely, at least. So, and I feel like there's no way that Aron actually wins a head-to-head against Antonelli. Not in terms of points or anything, just in terms of the optics of it, if that makes sense. Like, even if he finishes like 10, 20 points ahead of Antonelli, obviously everybody will rate the much younger and much less experienced Antonelli higher still. So there's really nothing that Aron can win there in the head-to-head, and I don't see a world in where he realistically gets chosen over Kimi for a potential Mercedes-backed seat. So really, I feel like his best shot at making it to F1 is now to have a fantastic debut season and get picked up by someone else. It's not like he's a bad driver or anything. He's just not flashy or particularly exciting, neither on track or with his CV, really. He's just one of these people that keep moving up because he's really, really good, but maybe just not great enough, if that makes sense. Not in the F1 sense of the word, anyway. Okay. Yeah, those were my thoughts. My thoughts about Paul Aron leaving and all the other things about this week. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment. Let me know what you think about Dory finally winning a race, or just her future in single-seaters in general. I, for one, know that I'm very excited about it, hence why I'm going to keep talking about it next week, presumably where we have another bunch of Formula 4 competition on track. I'll see you then. Until then, take care and bye-bye.